So for our ABA topic paper, Emily and I chose to focus in on the assessments and treatment of noncompliance.
Some background as to why I decided to choose noncompliance for this assignment is because of how I've seen it with clients from all different ages on the autism spectrum, and how I've seen it in home, in clinic, or in schools, and how I think it's a behavior that really affects all these different areas of a child's life and can affect them learning new skills or their relationship with their peers or their parents or their teachers.
Yeah, I really wanted to focus in on noncompliance for similar reasons as Emily. I think that noncompliance is a behavior that we see most frequently working in the field of behavior analysis, whether it be, like Emily said, in the school or at home or in the community. It really does affect children in all those aspects of their lives.
So noncompliance can be defined as any incident where an individual physically or verbally refuses a directed task. This behavior is typical in typical developing kids and also in developmentally delayed kids. So I think this is important information for everyone so that they can know how to treat and deal with noncompliance.
Yeah, and like Emily said, it is common for both typically developing children and those with development that are developmentally delayed. And so that's really a part to hone in on because it is common and we see it in almost all children. So assessments are direct and or indirect. So a direct assessment is the assessor is observing the behavior directly and is able to identify the antecedents, what happens directly before, and the consequences, what happens directly after the behavior. And then those indirect assessments are the informed party, whether it be a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, somebody like that, that reports on their own observation of the behavior and what they see when it occurs. It is important to identify the function of the behavior through assessments.
So once we identify the function of the behavior, whether it be from any of the four on the image shown, it can be attention, escape, access to tangibles, or sensory. Based on the function, we are able to understand the behavior more and see why it's maintained and then select the proper intervention.
So going on to interventions for noncompliance can include targeting the behavior's antecedents and consequences. For example, priming, prompting procedures, high probability sequence, positive and negative reinforcement. It is important to assess the participant's behavior and identify its function in order to implement the appropriate intervention. So once we are able to identify the function of that behavior, we can really focus in on the appropriate intervention that is going to help with the behavior that is maintained by one of those four items that you saw on the last page. Research has demonstrated that the benefits that individualized treatment can have on noncompliance behaviors.
So an example of some interventions that I've personally used for children with noncompliance behaviors in my own work in the field has included priming. So for this, a client would be given a heads up or like kind of being told what's going to happen before a transition in order to better prepare them so that compliance can increase.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but it is really important that the treatment that we are implementing for these clients or children are individualized because no two children are the same, and just because it has the same function as someone else's noncompliance behavior, it doesn't mean that the same intervention is going to work. It really is a case-by-case basis. So in the gaps,
So,
there is an inconsistency between responses. So what I mean by that is the response or the consequence of the behavior of noncompliance, whether it be the RBT, the parents, the teacher, or even the BCBA. We really need to make sure that how everyone is responding to that behavior is consistent, because there is a large inconsistency with that.
so this is one of the reasons why individualized treatment is also very important, so that we can close these gaps. This lets us know the proper replacement skills that we can teach to the clients with the behavior, so that they can show greater compliance. And the first step to this goes back to assessing the behavior and understanding its function.
And when there could be inconsistencies between the way that the RBT or parent responds to the behavior and the way that the teacher responds to the behavior, but it also can be how one of those people in the client's or child's lives is responding day to day. So if I'm the RBT working on the case, I need to make sure that on Monday, the way that I am responding to the behavior is the same way that I'm responding to the behavior Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or any other time that that behavior occurs. So the solutions to those gaps are more research. It also means continuing research. So for those that are in the field or future behavior analysis, it's important to stay up to date on the new findings. So research is still being done on noncompliance, and it forever will be as things evolve and change, but really staying up to date on what is the best intervention for some of these functions of noncompliance is really important. It also is you can also do the research as it comes, but another way to do it is to continue your education, whether it mean taking more classes or reading books or finding new articles, but really honing in on continuing to find those new interventions or the new science-backed research that has been proven to work. Another way to fill in those gaps is the training. So whether it be training of parents or RBTs, teachers, it's really important to train staff to respond to noncompliance based on the function of the behavior to make sure that it decreases. If those trainings don't happen, that's when you're going to see the inconsistency in responding and consequences of the behavior, which is going to make the behavior increase instead of decreasing like we want it to.
So this also includes we have to be consistent with the assessments used to find the function of the behavior, because identifying the function of the behavior is the first step in selecting the proper intervention. And without identifying the function, we can't select the proper intervention to use. And this also can go into sometimes the function can change, or there could be more than one function. So it's important to kind of check back and do assessments or follow-up assessments, or just see where the behavior, how the behavior is being maintained, so that we can alter interventions to fit it.
Yeah, it's hard to say specifically when all these assessments should be taking place, but if you're seeing that the intervention that is in place is either increasing the behavior or not changing the behavior at all, then you really want to go back to those assessments and make sure that you have the correct function of the behavior. As we teach the replacement skills needed, the function of the behavior can change, because if we are giving them replacement skills for how to appropriately ask for help instead of trying to escape the task, once we give them those skills and teach them those replacement skills, noncompliance can have a different function based on any number of reasons, but so that's why we really need to keep consistent eye on the data that we're taking for noncompliance itself to make sure that the intervention we have selected is working.